Let's begin with updates on the proposed tax reform bills. Chairman of the Presidential Committee on Fiscal Policy and Tax Reforms, Taiwo Oyedele, says the proposed tax reform bills by the Bola Tinubu administration will help curb inflation by reducing costs for most households. Oyedele also dismissed criticism that the plan could exacerbate economic hardship in Africa's most populous nation, after scrapping a costly petrol subsidy and devaluing the currency twice in its first year in office. President Bola Tinubu has now turned his focus to tax system reforms. While these measures have contributed to rising prices, his administration aims to bring inflation down to 15% this year from 34.8% in December. The presidential aide also defended the plan to nearly double the value-added tax to 12.5% by the year 2026, insisting that it is a necessary step towards economic stability. And so to help us make sense of this, we're joined by an economic analyst, Olusesan Okunade, and is live in our studios. Thank you so much for coming to our studios to talk about this.
Yeah, good afternoon, Lekon, and good morning, good afternoon to all our viewers across the globe. Glad to be here.
Of course. So is it true that these tax reform bills would do enough or will be enough when it comes to stemming the rising figures in inflation in the country?
Thank you very much. If you look at the proposed budget, first and foremost, I saw a very tall order from the projection of reducing the inflation from 34% to about 15%. And if you look at the mechanism put together by the Fiscal Policy Committee, it's something that should work. But you know, my fear most of the time is we have fantastic policy in place. When it comes to implementation, you see people, cutting short some of these areas, and you won't see the visibility of it. We've had a lot of brilliant idea. A lot of us supported the issue of fuel subsidy with the aim that it will balance up things, whereas it resulted to the implementation was actually wrong. If you look at the issue of devaluation of currency, some of us were against it, but then there was superior, argument on it. It was the value. Where has it taken us to as we speak? So this might look very interesting on paper to say that, one, the mechanism they've actually put in place by making sure that you increase the slot of the normal people that should pay taxes. I'm sure you know if this is passed into bill, the catchment area of paying taxes will be about 1 million. Those are at 1 million per annum, which has given room for the minimum wages to be excluded from paying taxes. There are a lot of reliefs that are actually given to lessen the burden. And they also, you've seen a lot of products being exempted from it. I don't have idea with some of those things because we've seen a lot of laudable policies like this, that when the time of implementation comes, even the people that initiate or originate the policy themselves, they get confused at the middle of it. And that is my worry. How much monitoring have we actually put in place to make sure that we have a walkthrough, either at the federal, at the state, and at the local government, the implementation of certain things we've seen in play? Because the major area I'm going to have problem is, the suggestion made by the committee in the area of sharing this VAT is against what the NGF are actually saying. If we don't have a common ground there, your projection for the chairman might be that 60-20-20 will bring things, balance things up.
Balance,
but we're already talking of 50-30-20 as against the 50-20-30 that we had beforehand. Where do we have the common ground to make sure that because the equitable is so many people still consider it as a challenge. So I don't have problem on paper, even aside the tax policy, a lot of fantastic policy that we have currently, but in terms of implementation, we don't have a walkthrough. You get to the middle of it and people backed out, and it becomes a rhetorics that people will just be reading in the papers.
And one other concern for a lot of Nigerians is the proposal to increase VAT. Well, it's going to be a gradual increase anyway, from 7.5% to 12.6%. Well, by the year 2026, that could be counterproductive. True or false?
Yeah, well, I won't say it's counterproductive. If you look at the payment of VAT, which is considered to be consumption tax based on things you consume and services. Globally, I think we pay fairly the lowest. But you know, my concern is this VAT, as we speak, plays a major role in our revenue drive to the state. How much of it have we seen transcend into transforming the life of average citizen? When the issue of fuel subsidy came on board, we were told that a lot will go to the states, and we saw the figure roll to the states. But how much of impact did we see on the actualization of those funds that were given to the state to impact on the citizen of the state? So that's the failure in the area of implementation. So increasing the VAT is really not a problem. But how do we utilize it? I keep telling everyone that you can get the policy right. You can initiate the implementation right. But if you don't follow through, if you just see the implementation for 1, 2, 3 days, and because I know the first month, second month, third month, we keep hearing how much we've been able to save via the fuel subsidy. But do we still get the figure as we speak today? No. A lot of people don't even when you try to search for it. I remember the month of June, the month of July 2023, when this administration came to be, it was actually a talking first for everyone to see. So increasing it's not my issue. Possibly to match global best practices. But you ask yourself, those countries you are comparing yourself with fulfill the social contract on their part to make sure that the things that are taken from the people are actually being judiciously used in providing infrastructure, in creating an enabling environment for the people. And that's where my worry is. Our problem is not policy. Our problem is implementation and follow through. We can initiate it. I keep asking everybody this day, after the first few months, about the allocation of the first subsidy gain that we have. Do we hear anybody talking about it? But people are groaning in hardship. People are seeing funds going to the state, but we cannot see the utilization of some of those things. For like 6 months, the issue of minimum wage was implemented. How many states actually carried that out? Very few states. A lot actually posted it to this January, which some are still even struggling, despite collecting a lot of this, differential in their what goes to them as they because of the removal of subsidy. So for me, it is not an issue of increment, it is an issue of monitoring to make sure that some of the funds that are actually given either to the state, to the local government, the citizens feel the impact. You can imagine an environment where it's secure. It gives room for the businesses to grow, rather than you going having extra cost on your operation in recruiting several guards because you want to protect either the expatriate, the local management team, and the likes. So these are areas we feel that we need to concentrate more in making sure that the implementation see through, not just halfway, and after a little while everybody just go to bed to sleep.
So the issue is around continuity in implementation process of these policies. But I know you've mentioned it earlier, but I'd like to still get your thoughts on the bias that northern elites have in terms of the revenue distribution. The 60-20-20 and all that. Though there's a lot of skepticism as to how equitable it would be, some progenitors feel that it would go a long way in seeing that those who have contributed more in terms of tax contribution would gain more. But how do you see it?
Yeah, well, I've been an advocate to say I think derivation should take more. But there is a caveat on my path. Do we have the mechanism to monitor indeed that a particular state is actually contributing that mechanism? Because as we speak, it is the head office factor that we always see. You make all the value-added tax, and you discover that it is the central headquarters that is boss. That's why you see some states having those good net, because head office is not everywhere. But if we have the mechanism in place to monitor that what is actually produced in Lagos, in Port Harcourt, in Kano, is majority being consumed in Osun, in Kebbi, and we can see the value. Do we have that walk-through mechanism to monitor that? If that it is, then the derivation can speak. That means you're actually producing, I'm consuming, and because if I don't consume, your survival is under threat. So because I consume, you give me more, and the excitement is there for me to continue to consume because I can see the development in my state. vis-a-vis it. So it's going to be a very good approach. But my fear is, I keep telling my friend Taiwo, you have those fantastic ideas. You can have the mechanism, but who monitor those things? Not to make sure that you shortchange people that actually, and you can see the equity, the fairness, the transparency, and accountability to say, indeed, what you are actually consuming. That means you have to mandate every of these producers to have a template of their sales in a particular area. And if that is done, I think it will be much more better than just having the equity, having a fair share, and those that are actually, because when you go to those areas and you make those sales, you are actually putting pressure on their infrastructure to do that. And when they gain more, they can develop it for growth in that particular area.
Okay, so I guess it's not just about ink on paper when we talk about policies. It has to do with monitoring and thorough implementation. Basically. Thank you very much, Olusesan Okunade, for sharing your thoughts with us on the news.
Thank you very much for having me this afternoon.